So glad you are here. Such an interesting guy. I, like many people in the area, follow you on social media, and your perspective on so many instances of injustice in our society and in the local area. I don't think anyone else is doing this. And it's like local newspapers used to do that, but where their resources have kind of dried up, right? They're not doing much of that anymore. And so what fascinates me about you is when most people see injustice, they just keep walking. But not you. Like you never keep walking. As soon as you sniff injustice in the local community, like, you are all over it. So I'm curious, like, when you look back on your life and your childhood, when is the first time that you saw injustice and you confronted it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. I mean, this
Yeah.
is a great conversation.
Yeah.
Honestly, my story started when I was 13 years old, and I myself was a victim of the very crimes that I often talk about and cover, and sexual violence as a young teen, and seeing later on when I went through therapy and really understood what happened to me, knowing that this happens to so many others, making sure that anyone like younger me has a voice.
How self-aware were you at at the time? Like, that's pretty young to be a victim of abuse like that. Were you just surviving at the time, and then later you realize this is like, I really want to be a voice?
Yeah, so at the time it was unfortunately normalized to me due to the nature of it, and it took time through therapy and working to it and kind of bringing out those kind of repressed terrible memories and bringing them up and knowing what happened and verbalizing it and figuring out like that what happened to me kind of opened my eyes again to how many people this happens to and realizing how unjust it is just that it happens and how can we, make sure these people have a voice, but also make sure that we have a system that holds perpetrators accountable and protects victims at the same time. I didn't talk to anyone about it because at the point it was normalized and also it could have been embarrassing at that point to even speak about to people. I didn't. It was just too complex to even wrap my mind around at
Yeah.
age 13. But as I got older, I've seen a lot of voices and just seeing anyone who stands up for themselves. I see a lot of victims who are their own voice, and they are the ones championing justice for themselves. And to know how hard it is to go through that, and not only go through it, but then be your own voice, is incredible.
Yeah, the people that I've talked to, with, not as many victims of abuse, but like addiction and a lot of those stories on this podcast, and it's a very lonely, like, it's a lonely place to be.
Definitely.
And when you're 13, like, it's 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 hard. You can't really advocate for yourself, and
Right.
you don't have the experience to see the larger perspective. So at that time, that's a difficult time of life anyway. So it must have been immensely lonely in the social world of a 13-year-old.
Just understanding the mindset behind somebody doing that is almost impossible to understand for any of us who aren't like that. But knowing that you're not just crazy and thinking this happened to you, or that you're not the only one, because when you first think of it, you start thinking, do you think you're like the only one that this happened to? To suddenly realize it's something that unfortunately so many people go through, and knowing that gives some sort of peace that this really did happen. This does happen. I'm not the only person this happened to, but it's a very real thing.
Kids kids don't have that, and there's no safe space for, I would imagine, a kid to share this.
Right. And unfortunately, perpetrators usually take advantage of that safe space. They are someone in a position of trust that a child should be able to be safe around, and they're not. And that almost eliminates that place of trust, or that safe place, as you said, because now that safe place has been eroded with, with abuse. And
Like, you live with these terrible situations. Like, you don't walk by. Like, I keep coming back to you stop and you live there.
There will definitely be people who rush to judgment and grab their pitchforks and run to the front lines of Facebook comments to convict somebody, but it's about keeping it balanced. And I try, when I talk about cases, to keep it balanced. Here are the facts. Here's what we know, and keep it there and not speculate. When people get online and they comment very hateful things, they're expressing their opinion about something, but they're making zero progress towards what they want. If they see something and they say, this is the worst thing ever, I want to change it, going in a Facebook comment section and cussing and telling people they're this and that and the other isn't working towards that goal. I'd rather go have a sit down with our local law enforcement and say, I'm seeing this I'm seeing this happen. How can we work on this?
Yeah.
And it's getting progress. My thing is always, how can we make progress, not just make comments? Everyone is dealing with something. And I think that also gets back to human decency, knowing that the person that you're getting annoyed with in the drive-through line may be going home to those kind of circumstances. And so certain ways we treat people or get upset about, we may not know. We definitely don't know what these people are going through outside of the public eye, the public circle, who we've even seen at school every day. We don't know what they're going through at home. I mean, it's something I've had to learn to have. And like I said, it's sitting this close to someone whose whole life has been taken from them, their child has been murdered, or being out in the field when someone finds their missing family member. Those things kind of really open my eyes to how hard those moments can be for someone. Those moments are what stick with me. And so when I look at what matters and what doesn't, I try to prioritize. If I'm making sure that the family or the victim is heard and that they're okay with this, and that's what matters to me.
You strike me as someone whose well is full of empathy, and that can get heavy because you probably carry a lot of responsibility in all of this. So are you learning how to, it's had to have been, because you've jumped into this, like, it's happened fast, right? In the last few years, are you figuring out how to have boundaries and figuring out where your boundaries are, kind of like a caregiver has to learn how to do?
Absolutely. And also setting boundaries where I know that I give myself time to do something I like, taking care of myself, and whether that be watching, I'm a big sports fan, so sitting back and making sure I can go watch one of the games on a Saturday or Sunday, or going out, and I mean, our area is beautiful, going out and taking a hike, going on a walk, just sitting outside, reading a book, something that takes me away from all the other stuff. It's having that break that creates a balance, so that I know my whole 24-hour day is not going to be consumed. It's going to be however much time I can give to it, I will.
Yeah.
And then in the other, because you don't set the empathy down. It's just where are you focusing on it and not. Like when I go on a hike, I suddenly am not like, I don't care about any of these cases, right? Like you still have it, but you push it back and allow yourself to breathe and to enjoy something. And then when it's time, you bring that back to the forefront, and your empathy for those cases is back in front of you.
Find a way.